want to be a short version. So, okay, so welcome to my talk. Thank you for coming. It's good to have this many people here. I wasn't sure how many people would come just to hear someone talk about writing, but I hope that writing is something that you are interested in, creative writing especially. Today, this is a workshop, and workshops got that little word work in it, right? So I want to do some work today. I want to do some stuff. We're all teachers. We all know how kind of sad it is to ask a question and have no one answer. The students, you're like, you just feel like you're about that small, you're about that tall. So I'd like to have some discussions with you, and then I would like to do some exercises. So you'll need your booklet and a pen. You can take whatever notes you would like. I've also got some handouts here that I will give out. I had a big turnout, so we'll see. Okay, so my name is Andrew Cartwright. I'm a volunteer with the United States Peace Corps. It's an organization, for those of you who don't know, that sends American college graduates around the world It's an organization, Peace Corps is an organization that sends American college graduates throughout the world to work in places that want to work with Americans for one reason or another. I'm here in the Teaching English as a Foreign Language program. I work in Reedna, at Reedna State Humanities University, and I enjoy it very much. I have a background, I have a degree in English from a very small college in Indiana called Wabash, and I have a master's degree also in English from Indiana University. So, come on. Okay, so that's the facts. That's the facts about me. Today we're going to talk about creative writing, and I just want to say that writing is something that I've been interested in since I was a little kid. And fortunately, it's something that I've been able to do since then, whether as a part of school, or a part of just the different choices that I've made. So I hope that you also like creative writing, but I want to ask you first, what is creative writing to you? What do you think creative writing is? If someone said, give me a definition of creative writing, what would you say? What counts as creative writing?
Stories, everything else.
Okay.
Essay.
Okay. So there's a different types: stories, fairy tales, essays.
Paintings of some story.
Okay. All right.
This is what students write on their own, not just like a drill.
Okay. So it's less formal. It's maybe not as formal as an assignment where you say, write an essay on this topic with these guidelines.
Or even personal letters. Imagine picture.
Okay, so creative writing values imagination. Okay, anything else?
It's a way to express oneself, perhaps.
Definitely. Self-expression is very important in creative writing. Anything else?
It's the ability to say something new, to what already is known.
Perfect, that's a very good definition. The ability to say something new. Creativity has that word create in it. And when we have our students write, we hope that they'll create something. We hope that they'll create something worthwhile and something new. So I'll just tell you my brief definition, and it's pretty simple. Creative writing is writing that places creativity at the very top. It's the highest value. It's creativity. So this is often, creativity is valued over other formal concerns. So the purpose of creative writing, then, is creation, as I said. Creation of something new, something imaginative, and hopefully creating something that's very rare. few chairs over here and in the middle.
Okay.
This is a good turnout for a boy from Indiana, all the way in Ukraine. So thanks for showing up. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, the purpose of creative writing is creation. We hope that our students, and if we ever try creative writing ourselves, we hope to create something new, something interesting, something rare. Secondly, for creative writing, language, craft, and style are at least as important, if not more important, than just pure content and pure information. How something is written is as important as what exactly is written. It's not having students come in and read something off the internet. It's not creative writing, obviously. Having students come in, if they've copied something from their textbooks, it's not creative writing. If you tell your students, I want you to write a formal letter, and it needs to have these lines in it, and it needs to be formatted this way. That's important. Students need to know how to format letters, but it's not really creative writing in what we're talking about. You want your students to create something new. A couple more definitions. Creative writing shows rather than tells. Right? Creative writing shows rather than tells. So, what I mean by this, I can tell you facts, right? I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I came to Ukraine in September 2010. I'm 6'10" tall, right? I can tell you facts. One of the facts I just told you is I came to Ukraine in September 2010. Fact, right? I just told you that. It's not a very interesting story. It's not very interesting at all. It's just a fact. If we're going to tell this in a creative way, if we're going to show this, then I want to tell you the story of when I came to Ukraine, right? I want to tell you how it felt when the plane landed on the runway at Boryspil, and I'd just been on a plane for 12 hours or longer, I don't know, I lost track. And just walking out of that plane for the first time and then just looking and just...
Oh my God.
Right? That's what I felt like doing. Yeah.
For the future.
Yeah, well, I didn't know, it's hard for me to describe. But it's easy for me to show you, right? I could show you how I feel. And if our students can do that in writing, if we can help our students to do that in writing, then we're on to creative writing. So next, creative writing is writing that values a rich, expressive voice. It's writing that values a specific person's thoughts and ideas. Right? When we read writing, we want to see that there's an author behind it. It's not just some robot spitting out facts. Right? So creative writing, should have an expressive voice. And to some extent, with creative writing, you just know that something is creative writing, kind of like art. If I say, how does this pen work? There we go. If I say, is that art? Well, thank you. I know I'm very talented, but I wouldn't consider this art. Right? I didn't put there's nothing behind it. Right? It just kind of splashed on the screen. But we know art when we see it, and I would argue that we know creative writing when we see it. So I'm going to read you two sections, two excerpts from pieces of writing, and I want you to tell me afterwards which you think seems more like creative writing. So here's the first. Winter begins and ends the calendar year. There are many problems associated with winter, but there are also positive aspects of the season. Many people dislike shoveling snow, poor road conditions, and disrupted travel plans. Others enjoy days off from school or work, building snowmen, or skiing. Okay? That's the first one. Second one. The cold has claws pawing deep down into lungs, no longer able, ever willing to billow fully. Fires inside dying down and throwing smoke. We drowning dragons caught in cold, pervasive as even ocean, over all flooding without waves, whittling the city down to white bones.
Expressing emotions. The second one.
The second one, okay. So it expresses emotions. Why else would that one be more creative, do we think?
Describing
Imagination. Very rich,
some images
expressive.
that were in my head.
Lots of adjectives, complex sentences, something like that.
Well, it's all one sentence. There's no punctuation. Yeah, there's no punctuation.
And the first one describes facts.
Right? The second one talks about, says that winners, but it's not about describing facts. And someone also said there's an expressive, rich voice, right? You can hear someone behind these words. So that's creative writing. So is this something that you already use in your classroom? And to what extent? Does anyone use creative writing practices? I know that usually within this curriculum, you have to do these things by this date, and I don't know the answer to get around it. But I think that some of the things I'm going to show you today, you can use to supplement that curriculum. You can use as kind of interesting, fun ways to get students interested in writing. So how do you use creative writing right now? Anybody? Do you ever have your students write fiction or poetry? You can, right? How do you do this? Do you just say, okay, students, I want you to write a poem and turn it in on Monday? Oh, okay, what do you do? How do you teach it?
For example, I give the beginning of the story or the end of the story, or both, the beginning and the end. And I ask them to write the middle of the story.
Good, so that's a strategy, kind of like one that I will talk about today, so good, I like that. How else? How else do you teach creative writing?
Also, you can take a picture and you can show them the picture, and they pick up the plot and they start developing it, but all in different ways. It's very interesting to compare at class.
You are all guessing my activities here.
So,
No, it's okay, good, I'm glad. What else?
Brainstorm ideas.
Okay. So how do your students know how to write poetry? Or how do your students know how to write a story?
From their
Examples.
So,
From their native language.
okay, so from stories and things they've read in their native language. Is somebody over here?
Giving examples. Examples, giving examples.
If you assign your students to write a poem, how do they know? Oh, you give examples.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I thought you were asking me to give examples. No, good. So modeling. Modeling is an important teaching tool. It can be dangerous because students can then say, well, I'm going to write exactly like this, and that kind of shuts down creativity. But I use models a lot because I think you can't learn writing better than from expert writers. So, okay, anyone else? How do you teach students to write poetry or short stories or essays?
Tell them the truth, what they really think about it.
Okay, so you tell them to use their own words. Good. Okay, so creative writing is a teaching tool. For those of you who are still skeptical, I'm glad that some of you use these things, but just a few words. Creative writing gives students opportunities to learn in unique and varied ways. So some students learn through seeing, and some students learn through hearing. Some students learn through touching. Some students learn through just sitting back and thinking, right? Creative writing, especially if you give students choice. If you let students have choice, creative writing can give an outlet for a lot of different learning types. Okay, that's one. Two, creative writing helps students to both create new ideas, but also to see old ideas in new ways. So create new ideas, which is what you want. Like nothing is better to me as a teacher than if a student comes up with a brand new idea. I feel like I am validated as a teacher and as a human being a little bit. Okay, but also it helps us to see old ideas in new ways. So if you assign your students a poem by who? Who do you assign poetry by? Tarashevchenko? Robert Frost. Okay, so your students might say, Robert Frost is way too old. I do not understand him and I don't think he has anything to say to me. You can say, okay, fair enough, Robert Frost is pretty old. But what can you pull out of his poetry? Is there an idea or an image that you can pull out? Is there something about this style that you could play with or say something interesting about? Okay, so it helps us to see old ideas in new ways and to create new ideas. So we shouldn't be teaching writing in a vacuum, as we say. We shouldn't be teaching writing by itself. Writing within a curriculum can also help students to be more active and engaged readers of text. Okay, I said there's no better way to learn writing than by reading expert writings. If you spend time practicing writing, seeing how you in your own brain put words together and put ideas together, how you use your own style, you then are more likely to think about reading in that way. Not what is this story about, or how is the main character, what is he going to do? It then becomes more of you can start to think more about style. Right? How did the author put this poem together? Or why did the author make these certain choices? Because when you're making the choices yourself as a writer, it helps you to start thinking about these things in new ways. And then lastly, creative writing lets students know that what they have to say in the way that only they can say it matters. Creative writing lets students know that what they have to say matters, and that they are the only ones who can say what they have to say in the way they say it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right, I said say a lot. But, yeah, we each have our own voice, we each have our own thoughts and ideas, and unless we write them down, unless we get them out of our heads, then they'll be stuck up there forever. Okay? So, I asked you how you teach writing, and some of you told me you have activities to get students thinking, or to give students ideas. Does anyone, and I've done this before, does anyone, you don't have to raise your hands, sometimes we just say, okay, students, I want you to write a poem. Go to it. And as a student, I've done this before. I have. I've said, oh my goodness, I've got a short story due tomorrow. I haven't done any work on it. So I sit down for like several hours and I just write, right? And here's my short story, and then I go to sleep. That's a very difficult and very probably non-creative way to write. When we teach our students to write, it shouldn't just be a one-stop thing. We're not just saying, go home and write. Instead, we want to think of writing as a process. Right? You know the word process, right? Right? So you start at one place, you want to get to another place, and there are certain steps you need to take in between. So if you write like I wrote sometimes as a student, you're just saying, okay, there's no paper, and now there's a paper, right? That's the process. When we teach writing, it's more important, I think, to give our students time to start writing, to write, and then to think about what they've written before it's all done. So, for writing as a process, let's erase my little artistic flourish. For writing as a process, so the first step of writing as a process is pre-writing. Okay? In this stage, we are helping our students to get ideas from their head out of their head. From their head, out of their head. Okay? We'll talk about pre-writing today. That's what we're going to talk about. But let's see the other one. The second step is organizing. So, you've got all these ideas. You've got all these ideas out of your head and onto the page. Now, how do they fit together? or what do you do with them next? You can't just then turn in your pre-writing, because you've got just a jumble of ideas and it's all over the place. So organizing is a stage where you take a little bit of time and say, okay, I like this idea and this one's no good. That's my most important idea, let's put that here, right? So that's organizing. The third step. The third step is drafting. What happens when you draft? You actually start to write, okay? So this is the step where you actually write something. You actually sit down with the ideas and your organization steps and write something. The fourth stage, after you have something written, you're not done. The fourth stage is revising. Close. And we'll put the fifth one up there because someone just said it. Editing. Now, often we use these as synonyms, right? Revising is editing is revising, right? But in this system and in the understanding that I hope that you'll have, revising means editing, not editing. Revising means reading and changing based on ideas. It's about ideas. So when you're in the revising stage, you're not worried about grammar or mistakes or really anything but the ideas. You're saying, do these ideas make sense? Are these ideas interesting? And so forth. Yes. The editing stage, then, is when you go back and you say, okay, this word's misspelled, this is a comma splice, and so forth. Right? So, revising and editing are two separate steps. If you try to do both of them at the same time, you're not going to do either of them very well. Right? If you're just reading for mistakes, you're not going to pay attention to the ideas. If you're just reading for ideas, you're not going to pay attention to the mistakes. So, now that you're through editing, what's next? You go back to the draft, and you write another one with all of the changes. You make a better version, right? So then this becomes a sort of cycle, right? Right? Drafting, revising, editing, drafting, revising, editing, until you feel like I'm done. This is the best it can be for right now. And then you have one more stage. The sixth stage. For teachers, it's usually getting the paper and grading it, right? But, and I encourage you to, I'll say that in a minute. The sixth stage is publishing. So you've done all this work, your students have done all of this work. How do you make sure that it doesn't just sit underneath a pile of books forever? Okay. How do we get our work and our students' work out there for people to see? One of my fellow volunteers is having a presentation on publishing tomorrow. Her name is Melissa Crut. You should come to her presentation. It's going to be really good. So, she'll talk about publishing. This is the writing process. From I don't have any ideas, I'm not sure what I'm going to write about, to this is pretty good. I want to put this on the internet. Okay? Today, for the rest of our time, we're going to talk about pre-writing. Okay? So, as I said before, pre-writing is a stage that we don't always think about teaching. We don't always give our students the luxury of pre-writing. I hope throughout this, especially when we do some exercises in a few minutes, that you will think not only of yourself as a teacher, but also as a writer yourself. Because I think, again, there's no better way to teach writing than to do some writing yourself. So if you give your students an assignment, how are you going to make sure that that assignment makes sense? You can ask the students, does this assignment make sense? But every time I ask the students, does this make sense, they say yes. Every time. And I know that it doesn't. Like, I'll say nonsensical things and say, does this make sense? So, how are you going to make sure that your assignment makes sense, that it's doable? How are you going to know what the challenges are? You should do the assignment yourself. Okay, so you can use pre-writing in your own life, but also, of course, as a teacher. So everyone has ideas. I had a student the other day, we were doing one of these exercises, and she said, I don't have any ideas. And I made her check her pulse. Because, of course, if your brain is working, if blood is pumping, you have ideas. But we want to make sure that the ideas that we have, both good and bad, get out of our heads so that we can separate them, right? These are good, these are bad. So this is the pre-writing stage. So this presentation was called Good Soil. And this is where the good soil is going to come in. I like to think of writing as maybe you think of farming. I don't know a lot about farming, but I do know that you can't just stand over here and say, I want a field full of corn. A field full of corn, right? That's not how it works. Farming is a process. You have to start with the seeds, and then you dig up the ground and you start with the seeds, and then you go, and then the plants grow, and you have to cut them down and then sell them. That's like your publication. Pre-writing for us are the seeds of writing, right? It's that first step where you're digging in the ground and planting seeds. And that's the last thing I'm going to say to that metaphor, but it'll grow in your mind a little bit. So. Okay, so there are a lot of people here. I have no idea how many. And I have 15 handouts. So, I think we will have to share. And I'm going to let you figure out how to do that. Maybe 1 to every 2. Yeah, if you can share like 1 to every 2 or 1 to every 3. I'll give you my email address at the end of this, and I'll send to anyone who wants a copy. If you don't have an email address, then maybe see if you can take one of these homes. So just like there's an empty field, you know that corn can grow out of it, you just have to do some work. Students have the ability, all students have the ability to write creatively. Maybe some won't be so good at it at first, but with practice, with work, everyone can write creatively. But we have to convince them that they can, and that they have the seeds already to do that. So, one of the ways to do this is through different pre-writing activities. I've given you a list, and I spent some time on this list. As I said, my email address is on there. If you want, I will send you a copy personally. But let's go through some of these different activities. This is the more interactive part. So, I'm not going to read all of them because I spent a lot of time describing them, but I want to talk about a few in particular. So the first one I'm going to talk about is called free writing. This is a pre-writing activity that can be used for anything. If you're teaching from essays to prose poetry, right? Everything in between. You can use free writing. And free writing is basically as it sounds. You tell your students, or you do this yourself, tell your students, okay, everyone get out a piece of paper, turn to a blank page. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. I want you to write without stopping. And if you think you don't have any more ideas, write in your book, I don't have any more ideas, I don't have any more ideas, I don't have any more ideas, until one comes. Right? The purpose is not to create beautiful prose or amazing writing. The purpose is to get ideas out so that we can work with them. Okay? So that's free writing. Another one that I really like on there is called just writing. And just writing is free writing, but with a little twist. So this one was invented by Melissa Krupp, and basically just writing means you pick 2 random words, as means. But you're supposed to write everything. And you do the same thing. You start with that idea, and you don't stop until I say so. Okay? Now, we're not going to do this together. I think it's a pretty straightforward concept. It does take a lot of convincing for the students to keep writing when they don't have anything that they think they should write. Right? It takes a lot of convincing to have students write things and not censor themselves. But it's a useful tool. You can use this in any part of your life. If you're, I don't know, if you're depressed about something, if you're sad about something, like, you can sit down and just start writing. And who knows what's going to come out? Maybe you'll figure it out. Maybe not. But it'll help you, I think. It helps me. So those are two examples of things that can be used for all types of writing. They're just wide open and free. You can make them more directed. For example, for free writing, you can give your students a topic. For example, if you're saying, if you have a class on memory, say, I want you to do a free write on memory. Go. Okay, so it's a little more focused. Or maybe you give them a question. The question on the sheet is, which would you rather be, a river or a lake? Don't censor yourself, just write. And then we'll find out what's good later. Okay? So that's the first group. The second group, if you want a more specific product, one of the things you can do is use pictures. And I find that pictures as idea starters. I find that magazine pictures are especially good, and even better than regular magazine pictures are advertisements. Right? I've got good advertisements here, right? Who knows what's happening in this picture? No one. You have to be creative to describe this picture. The lady's dancing, but she's wearing all green and there's a refrigerator. There you go, see? You're already started. Got the picture. There's one with a silver man blowing fire. Anyways, you get the idea, yes? So you cut out pictures and you can use them throughout the entire semester whenever you want to. Okay, I'm not going to look for that one. There we go. Right? The silver man blowing fire. Why is he blowing fire? Why is he silver? These are, you have to be creative to describe this picture, yes? So you say, I want you to create something new from this picture. Create a story. What's happening here, right? Students have to think about it. Okay, so that's pictures. Text. You can give your students a quotation or a selection of a text. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Right on. Okay? Shakespeare's sonnets. It can be a text that you're working with in class. So I want you to take this part of the text and tell me what you think about it. Okay? So that's text starters. Starters are basically like short free writes where you just complete the sentence. So you give your students some general sentences and they need to complete them. We're going to do this one, actually. So everyone get your pen and paper out. We're going to do some starters. Okay, so the first one. Well, all I need you to do, right, is complete the sentence in some way. It could be a very simple way, it could be a complex way. The first one is this winter. So complete the sentence. Yeah, write it down. It's a creative writing.
One sentence, right?
One sentence. So who's got one for a good one for this winter? What did you write? Yes.
This winter I decided to change my life, and it turned out to be not that easy.
Okay, good. It's very provocative. I want to know why it didn't turn out and what you decided to do. Good. Who else?
It snowed a lot and it was
This-
frosty.
This winter it snowed a lot and it was frosty? Definitely. That's definitely true. Who else?
This winter was this season for me.
Okay, good. What else? I wrote, this winter was the coldest of my life, because it definitely was. Every day I walked outside, I was like, this is the coldest I've ever been in my life. And then I went inside and I'd walk out again, and I'd say, you know, this was the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. Okay, good. The next one, before I go to sleep. Before I go to sleep. Okay, good. Who can share? Before I go to sleep.
Before I go to sleep, I never listen to news.
I never listen to news. Okay. I'll give you nightmares.
Before I go to sleep, I always reach for my daughter.
Okay, good. I always read for a thought.
Before I go to sleep, I will call my best friend for apology.
Oh, okay.
Before
Very
I-
specific, but good.
Before I go to sleep, I always create a new idea about pajama party.
Okay, great. Anyone else? I wrote, before I go to sleep, I turn on music so my thoughts will let me go. Okay. Okay. The third one, looking back at the past, I complete the sentence.
Thank you for skipping without the present.
I'm glad you didn't skip that one. That's okay.
Because we will go through without the
Looking back at the past, I
always connect the dots.
okay, good. Who else?
Looking back at the past, I want for the future.
Good, very good. What else?
Looking back at the past, I'm grateful for what I did right.
Okay.
I sometimes want to go out not to see some pictures.
Okay. I wrote, yeah.
Looking back at my past, I'm curious about how come I did become a teacher.
Okay. I think that all the time, actually. No. I wrote, okay. Looking back at the past, I wonder why I don't remember more. Okay? And then the last one. The last one. The purple sweater.
The purple side.
The purple sweater.
Was somebody's dream.
Okay. Okay, who can say? Who can say one?
The purple sweater would have been the better fashion variant today.
Okay. Who else?
The purple sweater is a must today.
Okay. Good.
The purple sweater brings me the sweetest memories of the yellow melon I ate.
Okay. Is it all over the purple sweater? Anyone else?
It's the only one thing to make me happy. Now.
It's definitely not the one I'm gonna buy for my friend. Yeah.
I wrote, yeah.
Can I have one of this? I wish I had the purple sweater.
Actually had. I wrote the purple sweater looked lonely on the rack by itself, so I bought it, even though I don't like purple. Okay, good. So, now, on your paper, you have at least 4 sentences, right? Any of these are ideas that can be taken in some other direction. They can become a poem, they could become an essay, some sort of nonfiction, they could become a story, it could become anything. It's a good way to say, look, you have ideas, students. Now run with them. Okay, so starters. And then, of course, you can use music or films as well to get your students thinking about stories. We're going to skip over essays a little bit. There are some things you can do with your students if you assign a formal essay. You can have them write questions beforehand so that they know what they're researching, so that they know the questions that are most important to them. We're going to skip over those. So, the next is creative nonfiction. Described a couple of things in here, but the one I want to talk about is called the mystery list. Now, I've had varying success with this one with students, but it's a very interesting topic. Basically, instead of just having students or ourselves write about some random thing in the past that we all would know about, we have students look at their lives and list 10 things that they're curious about. 10 things that, no, I don't have that figured out. I don't know what went wrong there, or I don't know what went right there. I don't know why I became a teacher, right? So you have your students list 10 things from their lives, and then you go back and you write questions based on those 10 things. So, did I become a teacher because I like students? Did I become a teacher because that's the only job that I could get? Did I become a teacher because I just love math? I don't know. So you have questions, and then you go back and you choose one, and you do a free write on this. So at the end, you have a giant list, 10 things, not giant, but a good list of events, a good list of questions, and you have a free write to start with. It gives students a lot of things to work with. Okay, so that's creative nonfiction. If you look at the next one, under poetry. So the activity that's highlighted under poetry is called blackout poetry. And it starts as a piece of found writing. So this is Russian, I think, but basically what I do when I do blackout poetry or found writing, right, writing that you find, is you just take a section. It doesn't matter if it's a whole story or anything. You just cut out a part of a magazine article or a newspaper article. And then it's students' job to take what is written and uncover some sort of secret message, or to make a poem out of what is there. So if you look at what is there, this is called blackout poetry, and that's usually what it looks like when I do it. If you look what is there, on the left is a selection from a textbook. It's not very interesting. On the right, I think it's a little more interesting. I'm not going to say that what I wrote is really interesting, but that's an example of blackout poetry. So can I see? So on the left, the world is not always what it seems. Even now you are surrounded by unseen forces becomes even now, the world seems even now unseen. Force power in your life anyways, right? So it gets students knowing that they can put words together, and it's a really fun activity. Okay? And then there are a couple of other examples. The most fun, I think, even though I'm a nonfiction person, I'm a nonfiction writer, the most fun activities are under fiction. So if you'll look, there are several different things that we could do with fiction. The first one is called mix and match. And sometimes for pre-writing, as a teacher, you have to prepare a little bit yourself. Right? Sometimes you got to prepare a little bit yourself. This is all you need for mix and match. This is all you need. You need a bunch of paper cut into strips, or however you want to cut it. Make sure that it's 3 colors. So mix and match works. You give every participant, every student, 3 pieces of paper. On one, you write a character. So you say, on the yellow piece, write a character. This could be anything. Talking dog. You could name a name like Jim Figglebottoms, right? Anything, a character, right? On the blue one, you say, I want you to write a place. Not related, but I want you to write a place. So Phoenix, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Washington, D.C., Mars, right? On the third one, you have them write a conflict, a problem. What's happening in this story, right? And so they have 3 things. And you don't want them related. You want a character, you want a setting, you want a conflict. So they think, this will be a fun story that I'm about to write here. You trick them a little bit. You say, okay, take the blue paper and pass it to the right. So everyone passes to the right. Take the yellow paper and pass it to the left. So everyone passes to the left. And then they get to keep their conflict. So then you have to write a story based on the 3 things that are there. This is not only good as a pre-writing activity, it is also good to teach the basic elements of the story. Right? Plot, character, setting, etc. Okay? So that's mix and match. Won't talk too much about these, but I want you to see them. So these are comics without words, right? These obviously help students to work on dialogue. They can help students to learn how stories are put together. But these are always fun, and you can find these on the internet as well. Comics without words. A cousin of the mix and match is called the recipe. And I wasn't sure how many people were going to be here today. I was going to have you do the recipe, but there's too many. Basically, another one that has a little bit beforehand, but basically, you want to have slips of paper. There are 120 slips of paper here, all filled with random things. So like a recipe, right? If we're baking a cake, we need a bunch of different stuff. Eggs and flour and sugar and whatever else you need to bake a cake, I don't know. I don't bake. But just like you need all those ingredients, a story also has ingredients. So you give your students ingredients, random ingredients, and they have to find a way to put them together into a story. It's very, very interesting. Again, you can look at those. So you have your students draw like 7 face down, and then they have to put them together. There's one in there that's a talking banana that I did this with yesterday, and I got the talking banana, so that was my fault. I'm to blame for this. Okay, so that's a recipe. Move past column right for the second. A chain story, and maybe some of you have done this. So a chain story. You have all of your students start a story at the top of the page. Right? Maybe they write for 3 minutes, maybe they just write 1 line. After a certain time period, you have them pass the story. The next student has to continue the story. And then you pass it again. They have to continue. So it's working as a group to create a story. And there are variations of this. One of my favorite is called the Exquisite Corpse. And it's kind of a grotesque name. But the Exquisite Corpse basically is a chain story where you don't get to see the whole chain while you're writing. So, for example, here's how you do it. You write 1 line at the top. You have the students write 1 line at the top with 1 word left over. So if this sentence is, the weather isn't really nice, right? So you write the weather isn't really, and you fold it and pass it. So she would get nice. She needs to write a sentence. And then she folds it and passes it. Right? So you only get 1 word each. And at the end, they turn out very, very strange. The door was green like a tree, but not as fuzzy, warm feeling of being totally out of it, you know. Time make me think I've done something wrong, and only wise wizard can tell right way of tight sacks join the dark side. We have two sides, good and bad. It was a bad thing, right? So you get really interesting things. And you might say, well, what good is that? I'll tell you. This will create ideas that no single person would ever think to put together, right? I had someone the other day wrote the ocean, right? And then someone wrote, is a big red apple, right? That's how it came out. I also had one student write, which I actually used this in one of my poems, the streets will eat your thoughts, right? Just really random. But what that did was it gave me a good line that I can then go and write a poem for, or a story, right? You have your students do the pre-writing and then choose their favorite thing and write something new from that. Okay, so that's the exquisite corpse. Just one more and then we're gonna finish by doing, finish by working. Now let's finish by working right now. So we're gonna do a column write. You'll see a column write on your paper. It's on the last page. Okay, you're reading it so you know what's going to happen, but you don't want your students really to know what's going to happen beforehand. You want them, everyone, okay, so I'm telling you to do this now, and I hope you will. Everyone on your paper, write down a letter, either A, B, or C. Only one. A, B, or C. Now you notice I'm not looking at anything, right? I'm just doing this. Okay, good. Okay, does everyone have a letter written down? Yes? Okay, so when I do what I'm about to do, you're going to have 5 words and 5 minutes to make a story. Okay? So, whatever your letter is, I'll give you a column right now. So if you chose A, that's your column. If you chose B, that's your column. If you chose C, that's your column. You have 5 minutes. Create a story. Which letter did I choose? What letter did you choose? What letter did you choose? A. Okay, I'll do A. It doesn't have to be a story, it can also be a poem. It can be anything. Okay? Okay. Yikes. Yikes. These are all expressions, like exclamations. Yikes. Oh my! Whoa!
Should we keep the logical way of the words? Or should
No, you can use them in any order and you can use any variation. So if you want to use, I didn't use
no
any
line
first,
for a
but
start? It will go.
that's fine, yeah. You can make them plural, you can change their tense. All right, are we ready? Even if you're not, we don't have time. So, who can share? Please.
The once lived a dog, doing hip hop. Whenever the doll saw it, she would go, wow. The dog thought it was fame. The doll thought it was money, power, and all that jazz.
Okay, good. So she's all of them and then a couple more. Good. Who else?
Would you envy the theme of a duck and a doll dancing hip hop and shouting wow?
Good. Very good. Yeah. Well, let's go here. Okay, let's go here. Yes.
When I was a child, I used to play by the lake. Every day there was a strange dog who swam in circles. One day I lost my doll somewhere on the bank, and you wouldn't believe me, but that strange dog said to me, she could help, but if I promised to listen to her singing a hip-hop song about her hard life in this dangerous gangsta area. Wow, I said after she said it to me, you are believed to get a fame as a rap star. So, kind of.
Very good. Very good. Yes, you share?
Oh my, have you already heard about this powerful turtle performing jazz in this puzzling way that nobody can stand it? To be continued.
Good. That's good. That's a good way to think about this. These are just starts. To be continued. All of them are always to be continued.
For my birthday, I was given a turtle, and as I have been really obsessed with playing and listening to jazz, lately I decided to teach my pet turtle to dance to jazz tones. Have I succeeded in doing it? Oh my! It is almost ready to dance, but I now understand that it will not be in my power to stop it doing it when the turtle makes it a style of its life.
Good. Dancing turtle. Good.
I woke up from some loud sound. It was rock and roll. I got up and looked around. I couldn't make out where I was. There was some strange room full of toys, elephants, bulls, drums, rabbits. I walked around looking at things and thinking that I had no money to buy any of these toys. Suddenly, yikes, somebody yelped and I woke up. I was in my own bedroom and all that was just a dream.
Okay, good. Good. Anyone else? Do you want to hear what I came up with? Don't dump the doll when I throw it at your giant head. Hip-hop blaring back at you from earphones grown too small from your bloated fame dreams. Play the game right and you'll be a star all right. Fight your way up and stand atop that molehill mountain and have nothing to say because you're not playing the game, doing the work, putting in the time to make those rhymes jump from the gate. Your horse is trotting backwards and to the side. Whoa there, boy. Perfect. Perfect your craft and then start your climb. Write like a dream one day, but put pen to paper in the real life now.
Wow.
Okay, well that's it. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. I wanted to do all of these, but we don't have time. So, if you want to look at anything, then by all means come up and look at them. If you have any questions, ask. I'll write my email address. How about that? If you want a copy, an electronic copy of the handout, email me and I will give it to you.
Thank you.